pop goes the culture. Victor Pross. Icons and Idols is a lavish art book based on the idea that actors, politicians, writers, musicians, the famous constitute a modern mythology. It is an eye-popping visual homage and satire of pop culture that is sure to tickle a funny bone and hatch a few thoughts. Victor Pross, painterly and pencil twists of Robert De Niro, Elvis Presley, George Bush, Leonardo DiCaprio, Sylvester Stallone, the Beatles, Marilyn Monroe, Clint Eastwood, Iggy Pop, Johnny Cash, and other icons from the worlds of film, music, and literature. This stunning book has over 60 artworks of fantastic famous people, unlike you have ever seen them. Now, the first thing that I would like to do, after, of course, welcoming you, and I should say that
Yeah, thank you.
this you are welcome. Are you a good guy?
Whoa, am I a good guy? Hey, I'm a good guy because I've done bad things and I've redeemed for them. Not some kind of like mouthing of words, lip service, like you might find with some pious theistic people, but I actually redeemed myself for my wrongs in where it really counts in inner, and then consequently apologize to those people. So, being an older fellow, I would say most definitely conscientiously, I strive to be a better person all the time.
All right. I I should say that one time I went to a establishment, a coffee shop, to ask if we could record a podcast, and I showed the owner the YouTube channel, and he saw good guys, and he saw me and my friend Oscar all dressed up, and I think he must have had mental associations to Goodfellas, the movie about mafia bosses, and he said, "No, I'd rather not do it." So I felt like there was an awkward moment of perhaps thinking that I was intimidating him when I wasn't. But be that as it may, I do consider you a good guy. I hold you in my prayers to Jesus Christ. But the first part I want to talk about today is your graphic novel. I just want to apologize to the audience. If you can see the back of my head, it has to do with sound issues.
You have a specific question in regards to my graphic novel?
Yes, tell us all about it.
Okay, well, I think you probably see on the screen a picture there of Amy Winehouse. That's not going to be included in the graphic novel, just for telling. The graphic novel actually is going to be in black and white. I think that graphite and pencil and charcoal and whatnot is a little underrated. Still has splashes of color here and there, but I want to go with a black and white aesthetic because, and I'm a detail freak, so I really want to give people all the same a very visual blast. Funny thing is that with graphic novels, as a kid, I grew up reading comic books, but I never caught on to the graphic novel fever. Really, that might sound surprising, but I've have consumed them to see what they're all about, and usually 9 times out of 10, if not just 10 out of 10, the artwork is astounding. It's very fabulous, very painterly. You can tell that these people are very highly talented and probably very highly trained in their craft. And the stories are taking on a darker edge than what you would find in, when I was growing up, 1970s comic books, right? Marvel, DC, and all that. So they're taking on larger, darker, more relevant scenes. Go ahead.
Robert Crumb.
Robert Crumb. Oh, well, yes. He's an independent artist on his own right. But short. Yeah, in the comic books, I see what you're saying. Right. Yeah. But yeah, he's definitely a unique exception to the rule. That's for sure. And by the way, just maybe it's no surprise, I have a lot of great respect and appreciation for Robert Crumb myself. Quite envious of his ability. But I guess I can distinguish myself for writing a graphic novel that will actually be a novel. Because if you take any graphic novel there, maybe we have some graphic novel aficionados who happen to be watching this, like, who knows, right? If you take any graphic novel, if you just rinse of all the words and just put the words all to a side, you'd probably not even have the length of a novelette. It would be very short, right? So it's more or less like the word is being appropriated, for a more sophisticated audience that we have today who are more cynical, but who appreciate light reads and very groovy art, very cool art, right?
Yep.
But I actually want to write a graphic novel. I want to write a novel where I could just take the text in to an agent and say, here's my novel, going through the process or whatever their submission guidelines are, and say, here's my novel. Oh, guess what? Here's the advantage. It's going to be filled with plush art, right? So maybe the story is going to carry the art. Maybe the art is going to carry the story. I don't know. But in this case, I think maybe I'll be the first person, unless somebody can educate me otherwise, to actually write a graphic novel, because I grew up reading lots of novels. The Fountainhead, Atlas Shrugged. And as you well know, those pages are a tome, for sure, 900, 12,000, whatever. So, yeah, and I'm fascinated. I'm a movie fanatic, which probably leads to the type of paintings that I do, because, I guess I'm immersed in popular culture altogether. So that's something that I like, storytelling, and obviously I've had a natural propensity to draw all my life, ever since I was 3 years old, right? So, but I'm fascinated by storytelling, so I'm going to make a marriage of the two and write a graphic novel.
Oh, can you tell me a little bit about the title?
The title, yeah, it's called City of Night, the story of that man and Robert. That man, not Batman, but THAT, that man. That's the title.
Now, when you mention novella or a small novel, I am reminded of Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, which covers a lot of ground, a lot of topics, despite being short. And of course, I am reminded of big novelists, and I mean this in terms of magnitudes, like Thomas Pynchon or Stephen King, who get you these big, thick books. Now,
Yeah,
I have to say,
Apocalypse Now, Heart of Darkness. Yeah, yeah. You make a good point. Yeah.
you have been someone whose skills I have been following for over a decade. I remember watching your old podcasts on YouTube, Pop Goes the Culture, and I remember even having made a video response, and this had a bit of a backstory, because for me, there was a certain back and forth in the old YouTube, the YouTube pre-Google, the YouTube of
I
Molyneux or
remember.
the 20 teens. And it was around November 2011 that my stepfather died. And I made a video response to you. Now, I should say my channel is very humble. My audience is mostly composed of either persons who are fundamentalist Christian family libertarians, or former co-workers and people who know me personally mostly. But that is why I would like to ask you about your philosophy of art.
Philosophy of art. Yeah. Well, uh, that's a subject that I've taken a great deal of given a great deal of thought, as you can very well imagine. uh, my philosophy art. Well, it's very unfortunate. even for a culture that readily consumes it in all its manifestations. And when I say art, I just don't mean painting. The categories are music, dance, poetry, which could fall under literature, sculpture, and painting, right? Those are the arts. Any culture consumes this voraciously, either by wanting to express it, to become artists, or to consume it, to enjoy it. And guess what? This has always been the case. This is not like some fad like the hula hoop, right? This has always been the case. You can, well before prehistory, before history was being recorded, apparently, thousands and thousands of years ago, archaeological digs will find um, instruments that served musical purposes, the caves or the paintings on the caves on walls, right? And in some of these cases, there's exceptional skill, involved. Now, I think personally that art is not like some kind of dispensable frill, like in the sense of that it's just a fad like the hula hoop and it expires like a loaf of bread. And then it no longer become relevant as the years move along or whatever. Any given artwork that's been created, right? I think personally that it's woven into the fabric of our being, the need to express and experience art in all of its manifestations. It's I think that people would fundamentally lose their will to live if there was no art. So there would be no such thing as, well, today the species will evolve in such a way that we won't want to express art. We'll just become like atomic automatons. We just do the business of living, and the physical work and abstract thinking, of course, involving whether it be an engineer and thing, but nothing to do with art. All the other abstract disciplines that could be involved, but and all the other concrete pursuits like of keeping body and soul together, just mere survival without art. You'd go insane, and that's not people's natural bent. So art, ultimately, at the end of the day, is not some kind of dispensable frill. It's not a frill, and it's not dispensable, right? And so that's just to magnify the enormous importance of art in any given culture. Now, the quality of that art is another matter altogether, right? Because throughout the ages, you have classic portraiture, and then it's moved on to surrealism, and it's moved on to abstraction, etc. But I'll say that much, and I'll let you continue. Do you agree with me, or would you dispute that?
The indispensable aspect of art for me is somewhat similar to that of pleasure or reflection, what people call meditation. Because if I understand correctly, and there is something that you mentioned about the caveman that is very dear to my heart, because of course there are those Neolithic era paintings in the caves of Spain. My ancestors
Yes,
were Spaniards,
that's
of bulls and humans.
that's right.
And of course, if I don't misunderstand you, and you let me know, there's a necessarily therapeutic aspect of art that will never cease to be there with us because we need to contemplate beauty and express ourselves.
Well, yeah, I mean that's a part of it. It's not just a matter of meditation or or therapeutic or in that along that sense that yeah you do enjoy it, but takes the complexity of reality, the daily reality that we're faced with, the bombardment of minutia and responsibilities and things like that, and it allows us just via whatever the art form is to take the whole complexity of our human experience of what we've experienced so far and to just break it down into one emotional some concrete given. The concrete given could be that novel you read. The concrete could be the painting, the music that you're living. That could be the concrete. But the abstraction, that's why some types of music moves you and other types of music don't, you know, because it's going right to your psychology, right? It's taking a whole complexity of your life and your conclusions and how you feel. Art can summarize in a medium the complexity of how you feel about yourself, how you feel about your fellow human beings, and how you feel about the universe. So if I'm creating a painting, for example, I would just use myself as an illustration. uh, I'm doing people that I respect, that I think that are great artists, and then I also do people that are quite loathsome. So I might, if I'm caricaturing them, I can caricature them in such a way that's demeaning, puts them down, mocks them. Usually, politicians fall into that category, and I think I'm doing a service to people. When you say if I'm a good guy or not, I think I am doing a good service if I'm mocking these power hungry politicians. And what I'm doing for the audience is, you can't revere somebody when you're laughing at them. Can't do those at the same time,
Yes.
right?
One thing that I would like to say is I am a Catholic from Costa Rica, in a Catholic region of the Netherlands. And so I understand the point of iconoclasm. But
Yes.
it is not clear to me that this got through to Molyneux beyond the logical fallacy of psychologizing. That I remember he thought of your art as a reflection of a gruesome and disturbed soul, but I thought he didn't understand the intent, because I think that there's an idolatry of the so-called celebrities in our modern times that, even in the case of Andy Warhol, who was also a popular culture artist, is not made evident to the public. People tend to have personality cults for politicians, for musicians, for um, movie stars. And I thought that what you were doing was a caricature of how it looks to see these people so enthralled by these icons and celebrities that are supposed to be guidelines to especially young people, because they are the ones who are most exposed to the popular culture in a
Oh.
very emotional way. Can you tell us a little bit about the misconceptions about your art on the merely superficial level that you have experienced?
Well, there's two parts to your questions that I can answer. First of all, I think the quote that you're struggling to recall and quote probably comes from Barbara Brandon, who was an associate of Ayn Rand. However, I will give you a quick little anecdote of when I first met Molyneux. This, I guess, was around 1995. Sounds like eons ago, doesn't it? Right, 1995 as opposed to 20 something. But anyway, yeah. Short stories. I met him through a friend. We attended various objectivist lectures that were taking place in Toronto at that time. I had my sketchbook with me, or a portfolio, whatever. He was going through some of it, and they were kind of like at that time I was doing a publication called Offbeat, and it was publishing just single gag cartoons. So he's going through one of them, and I remember I had one of them. These were just like absurdist, uh, dark humor kind of like gags that I were doing, right? Like I had this guy who was, people were asking for, all these people I were on the street, they're asking for change, bums. It's like some big city or whatever. And as this guy's asking for change, yeah, you got any spare change, right? And the guy's going along, yeah, get a job, get a job, get a job. Comes across this one guy who's just ahead on uh, on a skateboard or whatever, something that moves along. He's just ahead. He's severely handicapped, right? and he's telling the guy, "Yeah, get a job or whatever." It was just something like sick humor or whatever. I'm trying to recall it right, but I remember him recoiling, because of the weirdness of the art, and it was very detailed. You know my style, right? It's just can have that cognitive dissonance. Some people have that reaction, like, "Whoa," right? Not to say that I just do that, by the way. I do murals and whatnot. But anyway, he just had this recoiling effect, right? So, uh, but Barbara Brandon just went for all for me like a Wolverine on a poodle, and some terrible nasty quote of my art, right? Yeah. So I included that in my first book, the icons and idols. I included those quotes. Among some other more positive ones, of course, because where you have that extreme, you have the other side too, of people who appreciate the art, and I guess that includes yourself. Now, you were talking about like you take my art to be that of which is kind of like not like elevating popular people in popular culture to as
Yeah,
moral
because
guides.
it seems to me that there's not glorifying, but critique by showing how out of proportion the popular culture deforms these sensationalist personalities into extreme figures that you're supposed to venerate, but in reality, it is a deformation.
It's laughable. It's laughable in a lot of cases. Yeah. So that's why, like the book and the type of art that I do, that caricature is not necessarily skewing somebody. I'm not necessarily attacking somebody. I'm just paying homage to them in the sense of where their talents lie. I appreciate their talent. In fact, I might have very well said on a lot of occasions where a lot of these actors, like Robert De Niro, I painted Robert De Niro as Travis Bickle. He was the enchilada, when I was growing up watching his films. He was the actor's actor. Now he's acting like a buffoon. He's embarrassing, right? Even if I disagree, let's just say I hate Trump. Okay, whatever. He's still acting like a buffoon. He's tarnishing his legacy, and so that's the type of thing that I could make fun of. Sure, but I'll never stop ceasing to be amazed by his talent. I can't. I'll watch his films and go, yeah. It's not like I'm going to turn around and go, well, he wasn't such a great actor after all. Blah 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 blah. That's just idiotic. Got to be objective about these things. He's still a great actor. Period. But that's
This
just
is
that's just the point. Just to say this before you continue. Just to say this. Yeah, my attitude. I guess my art could very well be saying, yeah, just hit the marks, put your grease paint on, and entertain me. Otherwise, shut the fuck up.
this is
Pardon
a
my
thing
my
that
French.
that's all right. The French, also known as the Carolingian Christian monarchy or the Franks, were known to very nonchalantly, but looking at you straight in the eye, telling you the truth without giving you a lot of euphemisms. And this is something that I like about the Clint Eastwood movies, that he just looks at you in the eye and he says, well, I am going to have to kill you. Nothing personal, you just deserve it. And that is something that you can appreciate. One thing that I try to do with my own channel is to most often create cringe moments of awkwardness and interrupt the person being interviewed. And I do this because most of the people who I interview, I tend to agree on a very fundamental level, one way or another. And that means that I should not take me or the other person too seriously, but the content. And even the ideas, I think, should not be taken more seriously than their manifestation in the real world. If they are effective in the real world, then I think the work has had an effect. But one of the things that I notice about you is that you are a trained artist. You have skills that have to do with ratios, proportions, uh, some references to the Greco-Roman standards, even if you go out of that to have, as you say, your own pen, your own style. my wife, for example, she draws, she paints, she writes poetry, she plays the guitar, and she mostly likes beautiful things. She mostly likes to depict things that have a realistic, beautiful aspect that is pleasant to watch or pay attention to. And I tend to like not so much abstract, but surreal art. But one of the things that I can see in your art is that you are able to paint in a classical traditional way, but you prefer to go for a specific type of message as a leitmotif, as a repeated theme throughout. And I would have to ask you what influenced you or what inspired you from the very beginning to do this? Was it that there was commercial demand for this? How did you come to be Victor Pross?
Yeah, well, the excellent regarding your wife to appreciate aesthetics and beautiful art. I would not disagree with her. We would not be at odds. In fact, not too long ago, I've been commissioned to paint a rather large mural of the Himalaya mountains in a realistic fashion, not doing anything silly or anything like that. So I appreciate those art forms. And even in the current book that I'm writing, the graphic novel, it's going to have that whacked out to crazy art. But there's one of the characters, one of the protagonists is Kirsten Cluthe, a beautiful woman. She's a part of what's known as the resistance in a dystopian society, right? And this is her. She's beautiful. Yeah, there we go. And that's the classic portraiture that I also appreciate, and I would also like to have in the book, along with the insanity, right? So, I mean, you look at these, the villains, right? These are some sketches. These are the villains. They're quite
Yes.
appalling, right? Yeah. So I like to switch off back and forth. But I became interested in caricature because not only was I consuming movies like the Agony and the Ecstasy that had Charlton Heston playing Michelangelo, going back to my movie fanaticism, the Lust for Life with Kirk Douglas playing Van Gogh. I loved all these arts. So while I was consuming that, even as a kid, I was also getting down with Mad Magazine. If you know Mad Magazine,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, yeah. Robert Crumb, Heavy Metal, Cracked, magazine called Cracked, and let's take Mad Magazine. You know, cartoons or whatever. I didn't have like people would go, oh, fine art, fine art. You know, Michelangelo, Van Gogh. Oh yeah, cartoons, right? It's an outrage, man. It truly is an injustice. These artists of Mad Magazine are incredibly skilled and talented. For God's sakes, man. I mean, if you just go revisit one of those magazines, check something up online, you can punch in names like Mort Drucker, um, L. Jaffe, George Woodbridge, uh, the, uh, the whole they had a whole stable of different artists, of course, right? Every one of them in their own right were excellent. And I learned, you know, in schooling that Da Vinci. Let's take another of the classics, right? He experimented with caricature, you know. So this divide of cartoon and pop art and the fine arts, I think it's a very thin line, you know, because when you see Picasso's prostitutes, you're getting into some distortion there, aren't you? Right? You're getting into some, and they're flat in surface. They don't have like great three-dimensional shades and positive and negative light. right? They're kind of flat, like cartoons can be, right? So it can be a thin line, right? So I just wanted to consume all of it. It's like, yes, it's all good. It's all good. And maybe even make a marriage of the two. Have fine art and mix that with caricature. And even where caricature is concerned, it's not always been a tool for taking down the powerful and the elite to make a mockery of them, or just sheer entertainment that you would find on the fairgrounds when you go to with your children and the family and have their big heads on little bodies, drawings, which caricature is just considered to be that kind of relevance. But it's that, and that's demeaning, I think. But anyway, the to make a marriage of all of this, right? Surrealism. I like to have caricature, fine art techniques, and also surrealism. My painting of Dali, after all, it's very caricature and distorted, and is uh, done in very fine art ways, but it's also surreal.
Before we go there, I would like to ask you, what was the public's original reception of your art?
The original reception of my art, yeah,
Yeah.
very diverse, like high flute and praise, adulation, respect, awe, to being repelled and eviscerated too verbally. I can send you the Barbara Brendan quote. Like, it's not just like, yeah, well, it's not my cup of tea, blah blah blah. She's just went full throttle, right?
Yes, I think that actually to be realistic, you also must be surrealistic, because there is surrealism in some of the outrageous aspects of reality. If you lived in a collapsing civilization, or if you're a Christian in what appears to be the end times, it's clear from the text that you would not come to the conclusion that Caiaphas or Pharaoh or Caesar are the good guys, or in any sense human beings that maintain the proportions of ordinary people trying to just live their lives, love their wives, and raise their children. There is something different about Hollywood, about pop music, about what is bombarded to, as you mentioned, children in not only the public areas, but the means of communication. Can you tell me a little bit about your own personal development, a bit of a more autobiographical? First question would be, are you ethnically Dutch? Secondly, would be, what inspired you or moved you to decide art so boldly as a vocation and profession in life?
Yeah, well, I think I might have just broached it very quickly as we've been talking. That I've been drawing ever since I've been 3 years old. It's just been a natural proclivity. The story told to me was that and I don't remember it because I was too young, but apparently at the age of 2, 3, whatever, I was watching television, as kids will do, back when they did have television, lying there on the floor, eating my candy and just flicking all the different cartoon shows that were on. And I came across the Flintstones or whatever, and I just took a drawing pad out and I was watching the TV and drawing it. And I'm a 3-year-old kid. Now every kid draws, right? But apparently this had like a kind of a visceral reaction. The apparently the level of skill for a 3-year-old was even such to be amazed, because you applaud anything that your child does, right? But later on, as I grew, 4 or 5 years old, I always knew that was my advantage, right? Especially with the girls, right? Yeah. So I never went. By the way, I never went through uh, girls are icky stage. I like women right from the word go, right? So and I would draw my classmates, and I gained like a popularity around that, you know. So I just became, hey, I knew that I was an artist. But once again, you know, for a little while there, Sebastian, you know, growing up, my fascination with movies was such that I wanted to be a makeup guy. I loved Jack Pierce, who created the original Frankenstein monster, the Boris Karloff creation of 1931. He did the Wolf Man. He did the Mummy. Designed their look, right, and had the skill and the artistry to actually implement it and to apply it himself. Lon Chaney, the original silent movie star, applied his own makeup. So I got all caught up into that fever, and I was doing my old mad creations of scars and burns and Frankenstein monsters, right? Yeah, but somehow it's really strange how life, you know, like you, that's like that John Lennon quote, you know, life is what happens to you when you're busy making other plans. I always just went back to art, you know, and found that to be my true vocation, just by natural inclination. And I going to school and thinking and learning about past artists, going back and to speak of Da Vinci as I did, the one of the, he all experimented with caricature, but it wasn't known yet as caricature, and it wasn't used as a political tool. He was experimenting with the physiognomy of the face to stretch it out to see, you know, what he could do to enhance expressions or to make a point on something more uh, didactic than lampooning somebody. So that will to experiment and to try new things and to break out of the box, as they say, right? It's like the quote from Picasso, you know, uh, learn to be an artist, or something to the effect of like, learn how to paint like like a professional, break the rules like an artist, right? Something to that effect, right? Yeah. So I've gone through the fine, learning how to do fine portraits and things like that, proportionality, dimensions, and things like that. That's the skills, right? But an artist has to ask himself, where's the art? Okay, where's the art? That's something that can't be transferred. That's something that can't be taught. So you have to go inward and find who you are and make it your own. You know, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I mean, yeah, like skin tones and proportionality, genres like surrealism or abstraction or classic portraiture. Uh, yeah, learn the skills, but where's the artist? Where's the artist? When you look at a painting, do you know if you're looking at Dali or Van Gogh, Rembrandt, Michelangelo, right?
I
You
should
know who
I
you're
should
looking at.
I should mention that, of course, if I were asked about my favorite Dutch painter, it would actually be Van Gogh and not Rembrandt. And most people tend to gravitate to Rembrandt because of the light and the very masterful qualities. But there
Why are
is
they spoken
this.
in the same breath, though, or are they? Are they distinguished from one another quite clearly?
I think that in the case of Van Gogh, you can see individual personality, what you're talking about.
Exactly. Yes. There's no mistaking
And
Van Gogh.
they were both Dutch. Are you Dutch?
No, no, no. I got the English German in me,
Okay. What about the
which probably
upbringing?
accounts for my appreciation for Otto Dix. If you ever seen his works, right?
Yes. What about that? Where did you grow up? What Canada are you from? How has it changed? How has it influenced the person you've become? I can tell you that my story is quite strange because my relationship to this very boring yet polite country was one of frustrations and explanations. I once had a long distance relationship and I tried to move there twice. They denied the um, the visa to even enter. It was easier even to enter as a tourist into the United States. And that was the second disappointment. The first disappointment was that I was given, it was hinted to me that maybe if I got good grades, I could go and also study in Canada because I had cousins that went to Concordia, that went to McGill, that went to Laval, and I still have a cousin who lives in Montreal. And of course, that did not materialize. And I felt very frustrated. And then in the year 2009 is when I found Molyneux presenting his critique of state intervention into people's lives having a ruinous effect. And so I was actually happy, in a sense, to have Justin Trudeau against the Canadian truckers be the illustration of the detention in Canada, because over time it became a place that I was happy not to ever want to go to. Not that the nature isn't nice, not that there aren't a lot of artists like Gordon Lightfoot, Joni Mitchell, Diana Krall, Katie Lang, Great Big Sea, Stan Rogers that I appreciate. Of course, I'm a musician, so I tend to gravitate towards music. But can you tell me a little bit about the Canada you grew up in and the effect it has had on you as a formative experience?
Yeah, well, you mentioned Trudeau, by the way, and we've been talking about skewering corrupt politicians. In this case, a beta mill supreme, Justine. Um, there was a gallery show that where I gave a talk with a fellow artist, Jenny Priscilla. We painted in homage, for the most part, because of their musical abilities, the 27 Club. Are you familiar with the 27th Club?
Yeah.
27 Club? Yeah, where famous rock gods, Janis Joplin, Jimmy Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse, etc., died inexplicably at the age of 27, coincidentally. And we paid homage to them in paintings. This was a collaborative work, and I was giving or we were giving a presentations showing the paintings and giving a talk at the same time to an audience. Oh, but lo and behold, the mischievous anarchist in me came out, because this was like around the COVID hysteria. Around, we nevertheless put on a popular show when this was going on. Maybe one or two people were wearing masks. But anyway, at the conclusion of the show, I said, "Oh, I want to show one more painting. Let's take a look. Take a look at this over here." And it was a painting of Justin Trudeau in caricature, except he was peeking coyly over his shoulder. He's bare ass naked. He's taking a selfie. He has a cell phone up. He has the old Pinocchio nose attached to his nose, growing there. You lying scumbag, right? You narcissistic, lying, corrupt scumbag, right? So that can say had quite an effect on the audience. And there's pictures and there's film footage of all of this, by the way. So it can all be enjoyed. And but how did I get on that tirade? Oh yeah, growing up in Canada. What was like growing up in Canada? Well, I can tell you, you know, uh, late '60s, '70s. The world that I see today compared to when I was growing up, it sounds like an old fart now. When I was a kid, but but yeah, no, it's like two opposite worlds. I mean, like this is a surreal jungle, and the deterioration of a lot of the arts, and also the mental health epidemic that's going on. Yeah, man, I grew up. Kids weren't like lying on their asses in a slovenly way, playing video games and texting one another and things like that. We were out doing Evel Knievel stuff. We were setting up barrels and putting plaques of wood and rolling over them on our bikes to go from one end to the other. And we came home with a shiner or something, uh, and hiking and like enjoying the great outdoors. The Just the general atmosphere too of the 80s, where there was a plush of entertainment. Going to Toronto, I was born and raised in Toronto. Going to Toronto was like so much was going on culturally. It was just a bustle for different arts and so much to do. And not once you could actually sit down with your friends after going to a movie or whatever. You can go to Fran's restaurant that was open, until the wee hours. You can get out of a movie at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. Hey, let's go for a little bite. We can go to Fran's. They're open 24 hours. It's not a dump. It's a cool little a restaurant. You talked about the movie. You actually sat down and had a conversation, as opposed to sitting there with your face buried in your phone. The social skills of today's people is just, seriously, there's been a serious erosion as far as I'm concerned. I don't know if people in my age category can report the same kind of feeling, but that's what I see as an artist. That's what I see as a thinker, as a social critic, and somebody who is paying attention, right? So
One of the things that my wife loves is the outdoors, especially in the autumn, the falling leaves. And I don't mean just the Nat King Cole song, but the fact of the matter is that I do think that there is a disengagement from personal contact. And
you
of
sense it
course,
too.
yeah, I see it especially in the children. That's where I see this that used to be called in the jargon of people who haven't read Thomas Sass dissociation. But I find it particularly annoying in children, teenagers, and people who are developing, because one of the things that you have to do when you are facing the public, clients, customers, consumers, bosses, and other people in general, is have a personal interaction. And there's a painting by my wife, I think it's in gouache, that is on the Google Slides of my YouTube channel on the About page. And it's called The Engagement. And there's a lady on a horse, and there's a man being flirtatious and uh, bonhomme towards her. This is completely gone. This make eye contact and engage with people is a different topic. And you see it reflected, for example, in poor customer service, when the customer service, the waiter, the waitress, is a young person. There is a kind of,
Slurly,
yeah,
insolent.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, no, there's a definite social erosion that's taking place. This can very well come becoming a lot of it greatly just the social warriors and the woke brigade. Yeah, that's coming from the universities. But that's quite a different conversation, I imagine.
I want to ask you about that. What is your experience of the shockingly and surprising leftism? I remember, for example, I believe that you may like music from the 1980s. However, I like music from the 1990s. And then sometime around the Obama administration, it became obvious to me that most of the people whose music I liked, you mentioned John Lennon, I like his compositions, I like his melodies, but there you see the Marxism. But by the Obama administration's era, you could see that most of the musicians that were very famous in the rock scene of the 60s and then the 90s, that they were basically leftists and jesters to the uh, hegemonic, the current political elite. And that to me came as a shock in terms of disappointment. It stole away from my enjoyment of the music, similar to what you mentioned about Robert De Niro. I can see Scarface. I can see Awakenings and remember enjoying it, and I no longer feel up to watching a new Robert De Niro movie. So, what can you tell me about your discovery that the popular culture artists and celebrities in the different arts were squarely fitted within the political correctness of the Overton window?
Sorry, could you perhaps reiterate the question or rephrase it?
Yes, when you found out that most of the artists that everybody was bombarded with on the radio, on the TV, and the films
Yeah.
tended to be leftists, what was your reaction to that?
Okay. Yeah. The initially we can take a lot of different artists in that capacity, right? Charles Chaplin, right? He's had kind of like a checkered past or whatever. Uh, the man's an absolute genius, you know, and that's how I can sometimes determine how I care to associate with certain people is to do a Charles Chaplin litmus test. If I ask them like, "What do you think of Charlie?" Maybe they don't know. They don't know, but if they say something like, "Oh, that was like, can we do something in this century? Oh, it's in black and white." It's like eject, eject, right? Because I'd really like to engage with people who know the arts, and having a great appreciation. They can have an appreciation of artists that I don't really care for, but at least they're involved. They can articulate their appreciation. They're aware of the arts. They're a cultivated person, and they can like Wagner, that Adolf Hitler loved, and Wagner was a racist as well. Not surprising that Hitler liked him, but they can like all of that, and it'll have no bearing on me if I can have a conversation with this person, right? So that also goes for the arts as well, or for the artists. Might have like rather repulsive characteristics here and there, or checkered past, and even that could be judged. Is that something that they've outgrew, something that was said at the moment, something they later on to abdicated?
Yeah, this is like Saint Paul used to kill Christians. Saint Matthew was a tax collector. There's a difference between the works, which may have peculiarities or qualities or quality, and the criminal law judgment of the person.
Very good, very good. Yeah, yeah. So, uh, but if I'm praising a person, if I'm consuming them in that capacity, if this person is dead, I can't interact with them, then I'm going to appreciate what they did bring to the world, their arts, right? And I'm not going to take that away from them. I'm just not, because they're acting in the capacity as an artist, right? That's how I'll consume them. Um, so I'm not going to be hanging out with Robert De Niro anytime soon. So, but I'll go back and watch one of his films because of his craft that he brought to that. I'm not going to turn on with him going on a talk show and listen to his political espousings and whatnot. I'm not interested. Yes, just not interested. But I'm not going to take away from that artist, and I'm not going to take away from that person whose aesthetic preferences is everything that I don't care for or whatever. But I can still, talk to them versus the plebeian, who's the Philistine. Where's the movie black and white? Can we listen to something from this century? Yeah, I can't. The older I get, the more I measure my time, in my interactions with others, right? So I hope that answers it. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, that I wanted to ask you is if you could tell me a little bit about this painting right here that we have on screen.
Oh yeah. As I was touching on, right, doing the 27 Club and painting with fellow artist Jenny Priscilla, a lovely young Spanish artist, by the way. And we painted this together. This is a collaborative work, even though it's being attributed to me. I didn't do that, though. Somebody put that on there, Victor Prossart, to protect it or whatever. But I didn't do that. But the credit goes to myself and her.
What about this?
And this is Andy Warhol. I did all of this. This is having fun with the popular culture of him having fun with popular culture, like the advertising symbols that all penetrate our skulls, right? So there he is, and immersed in his own can of soup.
What is your opinion on that? Do you think that there's this tension between progress, the Industrial Revolution, and the idea of newness, and the feeling of naive, pastoral, idyllic, rural, realist authenticity, leading to a kind of cult of the spontaneous authenticity of self-expression, leading towards uh, woke art that is heavily subsidized? What is your relation to pop culture as it has evolved since
Yeah.
Warhol?
Well, I'll tell you something, Sebastian. I have a tattoo, right? Maybe it's going backwards.
Yes,
It has the anarchist symbol and art. It says art, right? Anarchism and art,
you
right?
have another tattoo that says Garfunkel on the other
No, Garfunkel, no, it says Pross, which is an homage to my grandfather, not paying tribute to myself. Just to let you know, for the record, to clarify that. My grandfather had a great deal of influence on my art too, in that he encouraged it, bought me, go ahead, son. I got the markers, I got some pencils here. He gave me the drawing pads. Let's see if you can draw this. Let's see if you can draw that. So that's why that tattoo's there. But this anarchy in the arts, you were talking about maybe the possible disintegration of the arts, the woke crap or whatever, or just the whole phenomena of postmodern art. I think you're probably talking about, right? Yeah. Okay. Um, Allow a free marketplace for it. Let people create their stuff. Let people become basement dwellers who are not interested in commercialism. Maybe they don't see art as a vocation where I have to amass some money. Oh, people will pay me some coin here and there in appreciation. That's all good. But I'm a basement dweller artist. Knock yourself out, right? And the reason why I would say allow free reign for all of this is that, once again, in the interest of freedom, right? But let it be as such that innovation slips through. You're going to have a torrent of crap, but then you're going to get those dissident artists who bring something forth that in one way or another is very positive and that does gather a large audience, makes a different makes a difference. And you don't have like some kind of aesthetic commissars in the culture, let alone in political positions to do something about it, interfering with all of this, right? Because if you're going to, you have your art critics to tear down and build up and whatnot, and it's a bouillabaisse of all different types of voices, and crap will come out, through all of that. Let it, versus having some kind of aesthetic commissar with political power uh, deciding what is appropriate and what is inappropriate, because we could very well say that Robert Crumb, that's inappropriate. Comic children consume comics. They see this, they're going to be corrupted. It's like, get eject, eject, get these
yes.
people away. Yeah, like
My devil's advocate here would be to say, for example, when this country, the Netherlands, was being run by a business corporation, then you got Rembrandt. But now that the West is being run by the nation state, what you end up with is this heavily subsidized by central banks and politically connected elites celebration of ugliness.
well,
That
that's what I'm saying is that the eject the people, the aesthetic commissars who have political power. That's what I said. Right. Yeah.
okay.
That is a problem that we're both identifying. Right. Um, but if you're talking like in some other sense of like, disintegration of the arts or whatnot, do we want to censure those artists? Who becomes the commissar to decide that in a non-political role? Right. Uh, and if we're going to speak of freedom, then we have to speak of freedom. Sounds like a
Do you,
tautology, right? Yeah. So you have to
do you,
let these artists be.
do you think that in a stateless setting or in a non-subsidized setting,
Non-subsidized, yes.
you would end up seeing a return to more traditional standards of the aesthetic across the culture? What would be your
Well, yeah, like
speculation?
two answers on that. Yeah, yes, in the sense of that these basement dwellers who are running to the state for funding, yeah, would be removed. Let them be basement dwellers if there's no commercial appeal to their art, right? If there is a commercial appeal, then it's pleasing that segment of the population. People are willingly giving their money to be consumers of said art in question that Sebastian might not care for, right? Um, but those other voices will rise to the top or not, depending on other factors beyond politics, and that being education, going back to the cultural zeitgeist. There's that as well. Yeah, like if kids are being taught that the sexes are indeterminate and reality is just one big Heraclean flux. Pardon me, I'm can't spit out the words. I'm just working on my first coffee so far. So a Heraclitus flux and everything is subjective and blah 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 blah. Like all that crap that's being taught, it's going to affect their art as well. If they're artistically inclined, they are going to make things that are purposely offensive to the senses for its own sake, right? Uh, and they're going to count. They're going to have all kinds of absurdities expressed in the art, and overall, it will be the lessening of the arts. But if you have political freedom, you will have all those other voices as well, flourishing to the front, making a success of their art because of people who want to consume it and express that appreciation with their bucks. Hey, listen to this. You know, a young person of today, an acquaintance of mine, loves, absolutely adores Lana Del Rey. I appreciate her music as well. Uh, she leans to the left, right? But that didn't stop her being a Canadian girl flying all the way over to Ireland when Lana Del Rey had a concert, was on a concert tour, and that was one of the stops. She spent how much? Lana Del Rey concert probably isn't cheap, 300, $400, the plane fare. She spent that money to appreciate Lana Del Rey, this leftist, don't be so commercial, blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, you will always have that.
What can you tell me about this?
Yeah, like uh, collage of the some famous faces. You have Arnold Schwarzenegger, you have Tupac, and you have Jack Nicholson. And sometimes when doing a portrait too, it's like in the interest of capturing something that is where a given person is iconic for one reason or another, given his appearance. The arched eyebrow is probably very iconic for Jack Nicholson, and the shark grin. So that's the thing that was to be emphasized. I think that shows the Jackness, right? The arched eyebrow and the shark grin. And then here we have with Tupac is the exaggerated uh, lips, big fat lips. Let's stress to that. I've had people speaking of attacking me, would be like how racist that is, but I guess they don't realize that I also did the same thing for Steven Tyler and Mick Jagger, exaggerated their lips, and you can't get more lily ass white than those guys, right? So there you go.
If you ask me, this painting evokes California for me.
Does it? That's interesting. How so?
Yeah,
California, the governor.
yeah. You have Hollywood. You have the West Side rap scene. You have Hollywood again, and I believe that Jack Nicholson is a big Lakers fan.
Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and this is just all fun stuff, yeah. And here's here she is right here, Jenny Priscilla. We this is another painting of that we did of from the 27 Club series, and that's um, Kurt Cobain from Nirvana. And so we're showcasing this to an audience, as you see, and we gave a talk, and yeah, that was from that 27 presentation, where I also showed the painting of Justin Trudeau.
I should say that one of the things that struck me over the years was how a lot of the things that were found, his supposed journals that were published by Cobain, and his very ahead of his time woke leftist positions only made sense in retrospect when I learned more about the biography of David Geffen, who owned the record label that financed or that signed up Nirvana. And I think that one thing is to recognize the differences of the qualities of what an artist brings to the table. I actually tend to like Van Gogh in the same way that I like Nirvana. There's this idea of just like grunge, the idea that you have to make an effort to see through the noise, to hear through the distortion, to see through the very hyperbolic and dramatic brushstrokes that are not realistic, but that have an overall rendition of what is being experienced by the person who has
Yes.
picked up the brush. And I like that.
Yeah, Sebastian, you're saying something very profound. Um, that is very true. That's very true. I remember Van Gogh was in a having an argument with a fellow painter. His name is escaping me now, and it's so annoying. I guess that's because I'm getting older. But anyway, this guy, this artist was criticizing him. It's just like, look, you squeeze, you don't mix your paint. You squeeze it onto the tube. You take a brush stroke all over the place. They're they're loud, and they're just painted here and there. You have gobs of paint on your brush. You slap it down. You paint too fast. And Van Gogh says, you look too fast. Right? It's kind of like, never mind all of that. To step back and see the abstraction in the painting. Okay, not
This
not whether this color is mixed, and whatever.
this reminds me of the Bible where Jesus says, "Fear not." And when you talk about a free market, fear not the demons, fear not evil. And also, I think Saint Paul says, scrutinize everything, keep that which is good. And there's a difference between the noise and the melody. And that is indeed what I take from things. I try to abstract what is the moral of the story.
Well, this is what I was talking about before. It's just like, where's the artist, right? Like you're sensing the artist beyond the techniques that can be taught,
Yep.
right? Um, Here again, we have a bar scene, with the. I remember one time on a trip to New York. I was maybe in my 20s. Took a trip to New York for the first time with my friend Barry McConnell, and we were taking in place. We were taking the whole culture, which is cultural hounds, and I got into a conversation with one of these going to some pub or bar or whatever, and I got into a conversation with this old guy who just had these amazing tales. I mean, like this 22-year-old guy, wide-eyed, open, and he just had these amazing stories, right? And I always remembered him. And it's an actual portrait of this guy, because I kind of like went um, what's that guy, Charles Bukowski kind of way, but it was driven by the spirit of this guy telling his wares, right? And in those days, when you smoked in bars, there was clouds of smoke. He had his booze bottle there, telling these stories, and I kind of remembered that, and I just wanted to express that. I just wanted to spit that out. Yeah, good old weenie. Yeah. Yeah, just having fun there, like with the loosely based, painterly, abstract, and caricature, and it's just let it stand on its own, and let's see if for the history buffs can put it together. Yeah, uh, Chet Baker, great musician, nice little jazz man. He had a very hard life at some point, and was a big druggie and drinker. And I have him in his natural milieu of being the musician that he is, with
I
his
have to
horn
say,
at. Go ahead,
my
yeah.
my, my wife, she is a Bible believing Christian. And I believe that if you ask her, she finds his voice and his approach to singing some songs like My Funny Valentine completely
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah, yeah. Don't ever take that away from her, and she would never should want to have that appreciation removed from herself if she learned of the man's biography. You know what he did to himself. Largely, he wasn't a bad guy, but quite the self abuser, and it's a sad story, if anything, that should raise sympathy. Um, but yeah, to express the Chetness, I purposely put his horn in the corner there to let us know. Yes, he is a musician. He's always poised, ready to play, but he's got all this drug fog going on around him as well. So
I
and
take I take my Oh, we have a technical difficulty. One moment.
Salvador Dali, we were touching on that for sure. Yeah, the
That is an impactful uh, image that it made me drop the back camera. So if you will have to bear with me, please tell the audience a little bit about this while I take a moment to recover.
yeah, no worries, no worries. That was quite uh, being flustered and taken aback. The yeah, the eyes popping there, almost coming out of the sockets. That's humor's sake, I would think, but at the same time too, that we all know Dali, especially in the publicity photos of the doing the purposeful eye popping deranged look. A lot of that's publicity stunts. The artist is selling himself when he does that kind of stuff. But it's Dali. It's Dali, and also have the serialism in the picture as well. He's just like an upper body, the soldier's shoulders with the train tracks going through, and cupboards on his chest. Because I've seen him do like a lot of different paintings that just have these cupboards coming out of whatever, right? It's like a motif that I see in a lot of his paintings. People remember the melting clocks, of course, but guess what? I got to do something different, right? So I did the little chest coming out. Here we have a friend and a colleague of mine, Walter Block. Now this is done in a homage. This is done in great love, great respect for for Walter Block. And the original drawing, he has that on his work desk. He has that on his work desk. And now we have Dizzy Gillespie. He was the jazz great, a trumpet player. The have the cheeks bulbing out in an exaggerated way, because he had the pipes to blow those horns in the first place, and they showed by the cheeks coming out bulbous like. And there's a lot of famous shots, photographs of him in such a pose, and that's the thing to stress in this as a caricaturist.
One of the things that I would like to touch here is that I love about jazz musicians not only their great understanding of the use of rhythm, but also the fact that these are at the same level of classically trained musicians, only they are better prepared to improvise at all times. And I know old Rothbard was a fan of jazz music,
Hmm.
and there's something about jazz that can be very beautiful, like Autumn Leaves or My Funny Valentine, but can also be all over the place,
Yeah, like
like
Coltrane's my
li-
favorite things.
yes, like Coltrane or
Supreme Love.
Ornette Coleman. Yes,
Yeah, I love this
I,
stuff.
I love Supreme, so I really appreciate this.
Oh yeah, Frank Zappa. There's a musician. There's a musician auteur who explored all different types of genre, including jazz. blues, rock, rockabilly, even uh, the pop 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 rockabilly of like the 1950s, where he did an album with the Mothers of Invention called Reuben and the Jets. It's like a band playing another band. He did that before the Beatles did the fictional band of Sergeant Pepper. He did Reuben and the Jets 4 years
Yes,
before.
I also like his "We're Only in It for the Money" and "Shake Your Booty"
Yeah, yeah.
albums.
Yeah, we're only in it for the money. Definitely, there's the social critic coming forth in the late '60s. You know, he's not only skewing like the political scene of the time. He's making fun of his fellow, I guess what you would figure to be his fellow cohorts, the consumers of rock music, the whole hippie phenomena. He's making a parody of that. You know, with flower power. Hey, punk, what you got in your hand? You know, and all of that. That's a great album. I love that album.
I have to say that I saw him once, early Zappa, in black and white on national TV, playing a bicycle. And of course, I am a bicycle aficionado, but to see him
With
musically
Steve
play a
Allen, I saw
bicycle.
that clip. Yeah.
So I have to say that this touches on something that I wanted to ask you, which is, of course, there are some skeptical of government in a similar fashion as the late George Carlin quotes in interviews from Frank Zappa. What do you think is the importance of artwork in the freedom or anti-aggression movement in general?
That's what you're asking me?
Yeah,
Okay. Repeat the. I thought you were going in a different direction. Could you repeat the question?
in terms of, since Frank Zappa was known to espouse some skepticism about government and authority
Oh,
views,
okay. Okay.
what would be, in your opinion, the importance of artwork in the freedom movement?
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. That we're touching that. We touched on based on that offline. Exactly. No, that's a good question. That's a very good question. I'm glad that you're thoughtful enough to ask it. Um, my recent book that I'm undertaking right now, the graphic novel City of Night, is about a dystopian society. I intend to just lay waste to the outrageous political nonsense, not any given party, not any given phenomena, uh, just the broad abstraction of the absurdity of this institution and the destruction that it brings. But it's going to be an absurdist, humorous book as well. But stepping back to take a look at the bigger picture, it's going to be an engaging story. It's going to have all the plot elements. It's going to have intrigues. It's going to have betrayal. It's going to have conflict, and all the other things that make up an interesting, engaging story. But when you're able to step back and take a look at the bigger picture beyond the brushstrokes, and to step back and take a look at the picture itself, as opposed to critiquing this little brushstroke over there, right? That's the trouble with a lot of people today. They can't see the forest but for the trees. And it's even worse than that. They can't see the forest but for the bark of wood that's up against their face, right? The overall picture here is to lay waste not to any one political party that's today. It takes place in an alternate fictional world. The country is called Plebia. The city is City of Night. So it's going to be removed from any known politics today, but there's going to be a lot of politics happening. A lot of the things that these politicians are doing to the population in this book will ring true in their absurdist ways. Like, for example, it's illegal to have your own in a certain class, the plebeian class, the dregs. It's illegal for them to have a private toilet. Okay, they have to go to the public facilities. There's these large tents of publicly funded toilets. This is where you shower en masse. This is where you take your craps, right? And it's just all organized by the government. and that's where you do your business, right? You pay your coin or whatever, but you can't have private toilets. You know why? Because private is selfish, right? It's not a part of the social. How is that good for the common good? You're private crapping in your private toilet. Oh, the little atom here, this little speck, this insignificant citizen, trying to he wants a private toilet. Oh, ain't he special? Oh, he's trying to rise to the level of an atom, right? So it's just all this absurdity and things like this. But you have to have a plot to carry the story where people care about the characters, where they care about the conflict. But the overall abstract satirizing will quote will sugar will quote rather quote the work as such overall.
What do you think about Joan Baez?
The singer?
Yes.
No, I recently saw you're talking about like the same woman who the folk singer who hooked up with Dylan.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Well, your question strikes me as coming from left field, but I love her. I saw that movie. What was that movie that had an actor playing Dylan and playing her and Joan Baez?
I haven't seen that one.
Oh, it's good. It's really good. Yeah. But it's a very lovely voice, and I just happen to think that Dylan is just more of a talented lyricist than her. But she's got an extremely beautiful voice, and she does a nice rendition on "Blowing in the Horn," what's the name of the song? Jeez,
Blowing in the Wind.
"Blowing in the Wind." Sorry, my mind is still on the dystopian concept here, but I don't know too much about her, just other than she has a very beautiful voice.
What about Emmylou Harris?
Emmylou Harris, another musician that I'm not too familiar with her works. Yeah.
What about Linda Ronstadt?
Linda Ronstadt? Oh, I know her. I probably know that one song. You're no good. You're no good. You're no good, baby. You're no good. Yeah, it's okay.
What about
You're hitting the mark. You're hitting all the musicians that I don't haven't consumed too well.
What about Stan Rogers?
Stan Rogers, another one. I'm not too familiar with the name.
Gordon Lightfoot.
Gordon Lightfoot. Yeah, no, I love him. I love his Black Day in July. It's got a very dramatic build-up story, of political turmoil and hardship and violence in the streets and clashing crowds. Something that we see today, and that song is even still relevant. It didn't become expired like a loaf of bread. It still has relevance today, and that's the thing about in an artwork, as opposed to singing about like one particular item that's taking place at the time that it's taking place. If he sung about all the riots against Vietnam, it would have gone stale a long time ago. But the wider conflict of state versus the individual is still relevant in songs like that.
What about Joni Mitchell?
Joni Mitchell, yeah, she's kind of a lefty, but she's a very talented lyricist and singer-songwriter, and Yellow Cab, yeah, and nice melodies. So a lot of these female musicians are people I definitely appreciate for sure. You can go all over the board with that. Jules or Sheryl Crow, Lana Del Rey, Feist. I saw her in concert, so I love female musicians and the ethos that they bring to their music.
What about Elvis Costello's wife, Diana Krall?
Yeah, Diana Krall, like she gave this one particular concert. I've heard her stuff; she's good, but I remember seeing her with Shania Twain, and what looked like a smaller, more intimate venue was kind of reminiscent of Elvis Presley's 1968 comeback, where he's just standing center stage on a square box stage with all this audience around him, and Sheryl Crow had the black leather like Elvis did. So it was kind of like an emulation. But I remember their interactions with one another, and you could tell that she was a gifted musician in her own right when she was singing. And I didn't know anything about her when I was watching this concert. And I could see her talent coming forth when she was playing her instruments and also doing backup vocals with Shania. So that whole, a lot of people would trash modern, modern country, but I like Shania Twain. I think that she hasn't got the strongest vocals, but she has the heart there, and she carries a tune that's quite pleasing, and it's that one particular concert that I always go back to.
What about Bob Dylan?
Bob Dylan is on the top of the heap. As he made such a significant impact on the culture of music for the better. I mean, for a guy, Sebastian, consider this. Look at this. The 1950s brought us rock and roll, right? Brought us Elvis Presley, brought us the Big Bopper, brought us Chuck Berry. All the great stuff. Was writing a zenith at the time, a cultural breakthrough right there with rock and roll, Elvis Presley. And then all of a sudden in 1959 or whatever, three of the giants get taken down in death. That is the Big Bopper, Buddy Holly, Richie Valens died in a plane crash. Jerry Lee Lewis has been ostracized by society. Took a hit on his career, his musical career, by marrying his 13-year-old cousin. Chuck Berry was thrown in jail for violating taking a minor over the border or something like that, something to that effect. So anyway, rock and roll was getting plugged. Elvis Presley was drafted into the army, right? So rock and roll was taking a big hit, and then all of a sudden, like here comes the commercial cohorts, all the industry people. All of a sudden, like the music is being flowered down to obnoxious, sugary ditties that are just everything was Bobby Darin, Bobby V, Bobby this, Bobby, right? Bobby, all the Bobbies started invading, with their sugar-coated tunes, and it was just became stagnated, this original musical revolution. But then people will think, oh, the Beatles. Yeah, no. First came Dylan, right? Bringing significant, more challenging lyrics, talking of social and political problems and spiritual problems, inner problems, whatever. Bringing more serious adult themes, let's say, to music, right? It was later on where it was John Lennon who was influenced by Bob Dylan. He got out of the "I Want to Hold Your Hand" and started experimenting with songs like "Norwegian Wood," which is a complete nod, a complete wink to Dylan's influence. He's talking about adultery in that song, for God's sakes, right? It's not talking about like some puppy love. He's getting out of the puppy love stuff right now, right? The Beatles.
What do you think of the turn into ever increasing leftism and Marxism in the case of John Lennon?
Yeah, a lot of people who used to, when I remember growing up, we got misty-eyed listening to a song like "Imagine," right? Imagine no religion, imagine no country, nothing to live or die for. Imagine no possessions. What? Imagine no possessions. And he's singing this on an ivory piano in a mansion, in a big white clustered mansion. It's like, what? The overall, though, I mean, like songs like that just come and go and don't characterize most of his musical output. A lot of it might be more his album Plastic Ono Band that came out post Beatles breaking up after his first album as a solo artist was all about self-reflection, right? It's all about self-reflection. Here comes John Lennon, the artist, right? From the pop tunesmith, what an enormous leap, from I Want to Hold Your Hand to talking about things like his own inner demons, his love for Yoko. He never really wrote a love song about his first wife, but now he feels that this is I fall in love for the first time. Don't you know it's gonna last, right? Now he's singing love songs. Now he's becoming the artist, right?
And that's very interesting because they were said to be very promiscuous while they were on tour at the beginning as Beatles, but he stops writing love songs and writes personal love songs addressed to his wife after he falls in love. One of my favorite songs by him is "Oh Yoko," that has this particular arpeggio that is played on the piano and the harmonica.
Yeah, that's the from the Plastic Ono Band, the first post Beatle album. Yeah,
Now, I want to ask you about Leonard Cohen.
yeah. Well, Leonard Cohen is like Bob Dylan, the sequel or prequel. Um, Incredibly inventive, heartfelt lyrics. Truly genius, right? The This also goes to show you that you don't necessarily have to have some kind of Star Search voice, to carry a tune, right? Um, One might even argue that Leonard Cohen's even more of a gifted poet than Dylan. I think he's taken on greater territories.
Now, can you tell me a little bit about not this one, but the moment, this one?
Oh, well, we were just touching on the man, weren't we? Robert De Niro is Travis Bickle. And I've always loved that movie. I've always been, being the film aficionado, especially the first time I saw that when I was like 14 years old. I slipped into a theater, by the way, when I wasn't supposed to, right? Because I just had to see it. It was restricted otherwise. But I was just blown away by this man's performance and by the story overall. This alienated, lonely individual who, would you say he's a psychopath or is he a moral avenger? All that kind of like ambiguity is brought to the film. He's going on a murderous rampage, but supposedly in the rescue and salvation of a child prostitute, right? And this is
No,
like a film. And this painting is capturing it right at the height of the mania of that final battle that takes place in the dingy halls of the building. I'm sure you saw the film.
yep.
Yeah. Yeah, good old senior father Trudeau. This is nothing more than derision, especially for this politician, right? His whole, yeah, you just watch me, challenge to one of his passing of a laws, right? That violated individual rights as it violated civil liberties as well. That's what this guy was all about. Lo and behold, that he would have a son like Trudeau. What a shock. But this whole no, go back to it for a second. Let me show you something here. Yeah, pay attention there. You see a little fly buzzing around to the flower.
Yep. Yep.
You have the whole rotting flesh, Roman Empire, Roman emperor kind of thing. So yeah, complete skewering of this guy. A Roman corrupt politician. Yeah, going back to my appreciation for music, right? Nothing skewering in here. That's John Lee Hooker and B.B. King. Love these guys. Saw B.B. King live back in the day.
I love the blues. I would say that as far as the pictorial art is concerned, what I like about your art as pop art is that you see there's pop art like in the United States, as you mentioned, comparing Bob Dylan to Leonard Cohen. I prefer the Canadian version, but you have Andy Warhol with Velvet Underground and pop art. In Costa Rica, we had Joaquin Rodriguez del Paso, who I personally knew and saw working because I was friends with Andrew Hardin, who was his roommate. But I would describe your pop art as the pictorial equivalent of Tom Waits. There is a grueling aspect, and this is perfect for the blues.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Tom Waits. Just very quickly to jump on that, and I have painted his portrait, by the way. Yeah, here's Tom Waits that can have like what could be considered in a lot of circles as an acquired taste, right? But I think any like Mr. Saturday Night, one of his first albums, early albums, where he doesn't really have yet that grungy voice, but he has "I Don't Want to Fall in Love with You." It's quite palpable to a larger audience. That but later on, there's a lot of his stuff that's quite the challenge, and he's the so-called acquired taste. Okay.
Yeah, well, to anyone who says that, I would present the voice of Louis Armstrong to
Yeah.
compare it to Tom Waits.
Yeah. And good old Jimi Hendrix. Yeah, this is the part of this is the collaborative painting again with Jenny Priscilla, part of the 27 Club. Jimi Hendrix, who died at the age of 27, and this is a largely Jenny's painting. I just I did the portrait of Jimmy with the head floating around, and it was just all a flush of purple in the background. But she brought all the clothes and the fire and the guitar and his uniform. She brought all that out, and I just did the portrait on that. The Ramones, yeah, just dipped my brush into black and white paint and did it's a homage to one of their album covers. That's kind of like similar to that.
One thing that many people don't know is that there was a hawk, a neocon, a conservative in the Ramon brothers.
Really, a
Oh,
conservative.
yes.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yes, Miles Davis. Yeah, yeah. The sometimes in a lot of these album covers, the old album covers, don't you miss those? You can sit down and listen to the music and read the lyrics and the notes. Appreciate the album cover art. A lot of his album covers had this red light on them all the time, right? So I just went with that. This is a very quick whipped off job. Yeah, and here we have Stevie Ray
Stevie Ray
Vaughan.
Vaughan.
Yeah, I saw there was a black and white photo that I saw of him in that same pose, and I like purple. I like blue and purple, one of my favorite colors. Smack of red in there, and that's just experimenting with colors that did it that way. But I wanted to do less caricature, I mean more abstract surrealist or whatever.
How
But
how how big are these works?
this one that we're looking at right now, that's probably maybe it's like be as big as um, I guess I'm talking about like 24 by 48.
24 inches by 48 inches?
Yeah,
Okay.
width. Yeah, along that. This is even larger painting. Um, this is a collaborative painting I did as well with another artist, not Jenny, but the all the demonic people carrying this woman who's smiling in ecstasy, by the way, as like it was some kind of like demonic. What do you call that? Those kind of parties. What do they call those parties? Mosh pit parties. Yeah. And so I designed all the different demonic creatures carrying the woman. The other artist painted the woman. I did some paint strokes here and there, but the other artist painted the woman, and I did all the demonic figures carrying her along. And it's called Feast of Friends, which is a homage wink to Jimmy Morrison.
Yep.
And when you listen to the Doors, it actually was Jimmy Morrison who inspired this painting. I wanted to do something like this, right? And just that wild, orgianic, Dionysus, wine drunken, pleasure pursuing kind of thing. I just wanted to capture that, a feeling like that,
And
where a
what?
person is relishing in their hedonism. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, carried by demons.
Carried by demons, yeah.
What?
Wherever they, yeah, there's I guess this could be a larger theme taking place there, right? And she's allowing it. She's allowing it. And there's Jenny Priscilla right there. We are at one of our. I did 2 shows with her. There's a painting that was sold by a Elvis fan. He sent me a picture of that. He reframed it, proudly hangs on his wall in his living room.
I want to go back to this because when you say that she's allowing it, this is something about personal responsibility and hedonism. And as you say, the demonic side of hedonism that can consume you while you think that you are.
I'm having a good time.
Yes.
But she's going to be. It's not going to be a happy ending, though. Here.
Yes. Now let me ask you something about technique. These are mostly oil. What materials do you like to use? What mediums do you like to use? What surfaces do you like to touch? What is usually the material components that you feel at home with?
Well, well, like your wife, I first explored with gouache paintings, gouache paints, watercolors, done some oil. I prefer acrylics. They're more malleable. They dry quickly. They have the advantages of watercolors and the advantages of oils. In that, they like oils, it's malleable. Watercolors are unforgiving, but they dry fast. So this has the benefit of both. Dries fast, and it's more malleable.
What about canvases?
What's that? Canvases? I used to do a lot of beginning works on just like sturdy, hard illustration boards, but I moved to canvases. I prefer canvas now. I used to did a lot of my paintings on just a big, big table that can move up and down, and did my paintings that. But now I'm standing up like an artist, in the studio with my easel and in one hand, and or the with the easel and the paint plaque on the other. So yeah.
Do you notice a difference between standing or sitting when you're painting on a canvas?
Yeah, no, I prefer to stand now because I can roam around the painting. I can step back and do a little dance. Look at it from different angles and move. Take a step back, look at the bigger picture, move forward to see the techniques that I want to do. Step back again to take a breath of the picture as a whole and move in again. This has always helped me. And if I'm doing collaborative works, that's you should see us, in studio, 2 artists working on one canvas. We're both doing all this dance. We're playing the music. We're moving in and out, and it's quite euphoric.
What about
Creating.
the preparation of the canvas? Do you use gesso or gesso or something?
Yeah, put down like a white gesso flat, a white refurbished, so it can carry the paints better. It's just like some prep work there. The maybe sometimes I'll just jump right in case of aspired euphoria and just dive right in. Other times I can be quite technique and slower driven, where I'm carefully doing some thin pencil outlines of where I'm going to place everything, and maybe I'll just improvise from there. So yeah, I guess I'm doing both things. So I'm doing like really prepared stuff. Okay, I'm gonna have this here, I'm gonna have that there, and sometimes I'll just jump in, boom, 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 boom.
What about the working schedule? What is the average number of hours that you find yourself painting until you feel satisfied with the
Well,
work?
you're probably saying painting, but like let's just take in creative mode. That's probably like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Because even when I'm sleeping, I'm thinking about painting. Okay, it's I'm if I have some kind of outrageous dream, I try to recall it the next day. Maybe it'll inspire an idea for a painting. That's what Dali did. He explored his inner dreams. He got a lot of ideas from his dreams. Right, he let his subconscious roam. So I'm always working, but the actual application of sitting down with paintbrush in hand, that comes in wild fits and bursts. I'm not too much of a schedule guy. Okay, I got to do this on Monday. Got to do some banking on Tuesday. Have to take care of that. Do laundry. Okay, on Wednesday I'm going to paint. This all comes in fits and bursts with me. I'm painting a lot, but it comes in fits and bursts, which comes frequently enough. And if I'm not painting, then I'm doing something else creative. Then I'm thinking about the character development. Then I'm thinking about plot structures or how to execute the next drawing for a single panel cartoon that's going to be in the book. Right? Always thinking, always doing. Not sitting back playing video games or just lolling about. I'm not a flop on the couch potato kind of guy. Even when I'm going to the movies, supposedly relaxing, I'm analyzing. I'm looking at the colors. I'm looking at the cinematography. I'm looking at the art direction. It's always an analysis going on as opposed to just consuming the movie and enjoyment. So always working, always
It's
working.
act. It's active, not passive.
Exactly.
What about
Learn to fall
Stevie?
in learn to fall in love with what you're doing. Right.
What
Never make it a chore. Don't make it a duty.
What about Stevie Nicks? What do you think of Stevie Nicks and Fleetwood Mac?
I love her. Absolutely spectacular, evocative voice. Yeah, there's a band that had a lot of inner turmoil too. A lot of it affected a lot of the song lyrics. Right. There was like a love triangle in the band, I think. Right. And that affected the music in a positive way. Right. They're taking their aggression out into in the lyrics, but they're also communicating with one another, and they're bringing the artist out. Right? And the way that she sings the song, just like the way that somebody like Janis Joplin, they are taking the lyrics, and they're bringing it into their soul. They're putting it all out there onto the stage. Stevie Nicks is doing it in a more subdued way, but you could just feel the sincerity in a lot of the way that she sings, particularly poignant lyrics. I can hear it in the voice. I hear the artist, not just the singer.
Victor Pross, that was it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sebastian. I really enjoyed that conversation. I hope we can do this again sometime.
Yes.